8.2 Scale Drawings. The objective is to provide practice measuring distances to the nearest foot and to provide experience creating a scale drawing on a grid using measurements and a given scale. So these mental math and reflex questions, I'm going to say them to you and I'd like you to try to think of the answers in a short amount of time. 4 times 8. Hopefully you got 32. 5 times 6. 30. 7 times 3. 21. 6 times 7. 42. 8 times 3. 24. 7 times 4. 28. 80 times 7. Remember, you multiply the first two numbers together, 56, and add 1 0, 560. 90 times 80. Multiply the first two numbers together of each number, 9 times 8 is 72, and now we add 2 zeros, so 7,200. And the last one, 5 times 8 is 40, and 1, 2, 3 zeros, so 40,000. Work with a partner and estimate. If you don't have anyone available to work with, try to do it by yourself. Measure the long side of our classroom and see how many feet it is. This would be the distance from the front of the room, where the white dry erase board is, to the back of the room. Now measure the short side of the room. That is the side of the room that would be measured across the front and back of the room. Use a ruler stick or a yardstick to do that. Write your estimates in the table on a sheet of paper. So first estimate how many feet you think the longer side is and how many feet you think the shorter side is. Then measure. Next, on Math Journal page 244, you're going to make a rough floor plan of our classroom. Then you will use that rough plan to make a very accurate drawing of the classroom. And that's called a scale drawing. Students, you need to look at the two drawings on Journal page 224. The first drawing is a rough floor plan of a room. It is not carefully drawn, but it does include all the information needed to make an accurate drawing. The second drawing is a scale drawing for the same room. It is drawn on a grid and is very accurate. So here are our two drawings, and again, this is the rough floor plan, and then here it is showing you that one grid length represents 1 foot. So one of these little squares that you are seeing here represents 1 foot. What information do you need to draw a rough floor plan? Well, you're going to need the dimensions of the walls, the windows, and the doors. And you'll also need to know the shape of the room. For instance, is it rectangular? And if it is, what are those measurements that make it a rectangle? When architects use these symbols, they show that there are windows and doors there. So if a window is drawn, see here where it's drawn with two tiny, slim rectangles. And you can notice up here that they're saying that in this classroom there are windows on this side of the room and this side of the room. A door, on the other hand, is drawn like this. And depending on how it swings into the room, if the door opening is to the left, as you can notice, it swings out this way. If the door opens to the right, it is drawn like this. Make a rough floor plan of our classroom in the space below. So you're doing your rough one something like this. Now you need to discuss with a partner, or if you're stuck, you can come back and talk to me, the information needed to make a rough floor plan. List this information in problem 1 on Journal page 224, and then sketch a rough outline of the classroom in problem 2. So, help draw a simple rough floor plan of the classroom on the board, which I'm not going to do because they have one drawn here for you. You need to draw the walls, show where the windows are, and then look and see where the door is at. So if this were our classroom, the two windows would still be on the same side where they're showing you here. And instead of drawing just 2 sets, we would have 3 sets. We would have a set roughly here. And again, I'm using the pictures that they're showing us are representing those. We have one roughly about right here. and we have another one roughly about back here. Now if that's the side, and we're not drawing the 3 smaller windows. Now if that's the drawing of where our windows are located, then our door would be located over here. And our door opens outward. So we would draw it something like that. The rest of our room would be solid walls. So you need to go around the classroom and you need to roughly, but as accurately as possible, measure the lengths of everything. So if you notice, this is just a rough drawing up here that I have done. This one in figure 1. But what I want to do next is, in figure 3, is I want to measure those measurements accurately. So I want to make sure I measure from here to the first window. And then I draw again our windows. And then I want to measure accurately again from that window to the next window. And I want to measure that area accurately. And then finally, I want to measure accurately the distance between that and the last window, and how that measures between here and to the wall. You need to put it in feet. Now notice here, we didn't do any inches because we rounded it to the nearest foot. Then you need to measure accurately the back of our classroom where all the hooks are. You need to measure the front of our classroom where there isn't a door opening, and that is where the interactive whiteboard is. And then you need to measure as accurately as possible down the north wall until where you come where the door is in our room, and then measure from the door back to the back wall and write that measurement. So you should have basically 2 measurements on this side, because you will need a second measurement here. You will need 1 measurement on this side because this is the back wall. You're going to need numerous ones. You're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 measurements in between the windows, and then you're going to need 1, 2, 3 measurements of the actual windows. And then again, this is 1 complete area. So at the front of our room, you will only have 1 measurement. So you need to examine the grid on journal page 225. And remember, with accurate floor plans, they're often drawn on this kind of grid. So you have to ask, what's the length of the small side of a small square? 1/4 of an inch. How many small square sides make up an inch? Well, 4, because 4 out of 4 would be 1 whole. So 1/4 of an inch represents a foot. Now you need to copy this onto your journal page. I need to tell you that this is the scale they will use in their scale drawings. So how many small sides are needed to represent a 6-foot wall? 6. A 2.5 foot door opening? 2.5. On a scale drawing, what would be the length of a 14-foot wall? 14 small square sides, or 3.5 inches. Here's your math journal, page 225, and this is where again you're going to make the floor plan of our classroom. Remember that the scale is 1/4 of an inch, represents 1 foot. After you've completed both the rough floor plan and the scale drawing of the classroom, I want to ask you these questions. So if you're not to that point yet, don't go forward. If you are, when would someone want to make just a rough floor plan of a room? Well, one good answer would be if you're shopping for furniture. You'd want to know roughly the area that you had. It wouldn't have to be that accurate. When would you need to make a more accurate scale drawing? Well, when you're remodeling a room, like currently with our kitchen, you want to make sure there's exactly enough room for our refrigerator to fit in between cupboards, for our stove to fit in between cupboards, and for our dishwasher to fit in between cupboards. Skip this part. I'm sorry about that. We are not going to take the 50 facts test at this time. Next, you're going to go to math boxes 8.2. I want you to go ahead and do these different boxes on your own. Remember, that if you get stuck or you don't know what to do, that you can go to your SRB and it gives you the pages below that'll help walk you through it. If you still don't understand, feel free to come back and talk to me. And then do the study link after you've corrected those problems in the math journal. So remember, here it's telling you 1 inch equals 13 miles. So how much does 4 inches make? Well, 1 times 4 is 4, so 13 times 4 is how many miles? 1 times 9 is 9, so 9 times 13 is how many miles? And then go ahead and do the scale drawing and try this. Remember to put your date and time on your pages and hand the study link in before going on.